What if you only had 3 minutes to make a decision that could save a life, but at the same time completely destroy everything you built over decades? Imagine being faced with a choice where there is no right answer, where each path leads to irreparable loss. Would you follow the rules, even knowing that someone could die? Or would you risk your career, your reputation, perhaps even your freedom, to do what your heart tells you is right? This isn't just a story about medicine. It's about you, about me, about all of us when life puts us against the wall and we have to decide who we really are. Because deep down, when we strip away all layers of comfort, security, and certainty, what remains is a brutal question. How far would you go to save someone who officially should already be dead? Before we begin, if you enjoy stories that stir your emotions and make you rethink everything you believe in, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. These kinds of stories don't come around every day, and I guarantee that what you're about to discover might surprise you in a way you never expected. Dr. Rafael Santos had a 47-year career of impeccable character. 47 years following protocols, respecting hierarchies, doing exactly what medicine and the law demanded of him. He was the kind of doctor who inspired confidence just by entering the room, the kind of professional who never gave cause for complaint, was never sued, never questioned a superior. Order. For everyone who knew him, Rafael was the living definition of medical integrity. But on that Thursday night at 11:47 p.m., all of that was about to crumble. On the stretcher in front of him lay Eduardo Mendez, 68 years old, one of the richest men in the country. 800 million in assets, an empire built brick by brick, scandal by scandal, betrayal by betrayal. But at that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that Eduardo had been clinically dead for 6 minutes. His superiors had already given the order, turn off the machines, free up the bed, there are other patients waiting. The protocol was clear, the science was definitive, and any experienced doctor would know exactly what to do. But then Rafael saw something. A fluctuation on the monitors, almost imperceptible, so subtle that any other professional would have dismissed it as a technical error. Something that reason said was impossible, but that is instinct, that instinct honed by almost 5 decades of saving lives, screamed was real. And it was in that second, in that brief flash between the possible and the impossible, that Rafael understood he needed to choose between being the perfect doctor he had always been or the imperfect human being he had never dared to be. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt the weight of a choice where, no matter what you do, someone will suffer? Stay with me until the end, because what happened in that operating room isn't just about a doctor and a patient. It's about all of us and the limits we are willing to cross when everything we believe in is put to the test. Rafael looked at the monitors, then at the phone where his superior awaited confirmation that the order had been carried out. 3 minutes. That was all he had. 3 minutes to decide if a man's life was worth more than his own career. 3 minutes to choose between the law and his conscience. And in that moment, with trembling hands and a racing heart, he made the decision that would change everything forever. You know, as I tell you this story, I can't help but think about how many times we've been in similar situations ourselves, even if on different scales. How many times have you had to choose between doing what's expected of you and doing what you feel is genuinely right? If this topic resonates with you, if this story is stirring something deep inside, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be an experience you've had, a thought that came to mind, or simply what you're feeling right now. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content that truly matters, that goes beyond the superficial and touches on profound issues of our humanity. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, this is the perfect time to become part of this community of people who aren't afraid to feel, to question, to be moved by real stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. Leave a like too, because it shows me I'm on the right track, that these stories make a difference to you. Every like, every comment, Every new subscription gives me the strength to continue bringing you these stories that make us stop, take a deep breath, and rethink our own choices. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what happened in that operating room wasn't just a medical decision. It was a complete transformation of everything Raphael believed about himself. Think about it. He had spent 47 years building a rock-solid reputation. Every protocol followed to the letter. Every superior order obeyed without question. Every decision made within the perfectly defined lines of medicine and law. He was the personification of the ideal doctor, the one hospitals want on their staff, the one families trust implicitly. But there's a hidden truth about perfection that few people dare to admit. It comes at a price, and sometimes that price is humanity itself. Raphael had been so good at following rules that, at some point in his journey, he had forgotten that behind every protocol there is a real person, with a story, with regrets, with unfulfilled dreams. Eduardo Mendes was there on that stretcher, not as a bed number or a lost clinical case. He was there as a man who still had something important to do in this life, even if the monitors said otherwise. And it was precisely in that moment of brutal clarity that Raphael understood the true impact of his choices. He could turn off the machines, follow protocol, keep his career intact, and sleep soundly knowing he had done everything by the book. Or he could risk absolutely everything for a slim, almost impossible chance of bringing that man back. His mindset shifted in seconds. It was no longer about being right or wrong. It was about being alive, truly alive. Now I need to tell you who the man on that stretcher was, because this part of the story changes everything. Eduardo Mendes wasn't just another wealthy patient. He was a living legend in the business world, one of those figures who appear on magazine covers with the title of visionary entrepreneur, a man who built an empire from scratch. 800 million in assets, properties spread across 3 continents, political influence that opened doors most people don't even know exist. But the behind-the-scenes story of this fortune was completely different from the carefully constructed public image. The truth is, Eduardo had stepped on a lot of people to get where he was. Partnerships dissolved overnight, contracts broken without warning. Entire families lost everything because he saw a better opportunity and didn't hesitate to take what he wanted. He wasn't cruel for pleasure. He was cruel for efficiency. In his world, feelings were weaknesses that successful men couldn't afford to have. And for decades, this mentality worked perfectly. The money grew, the power increased, and Eduardo slept soundly believing he had made all the right choices. But there was a wound that not all the gold in the world could heal. Helena, the great love of his life, the only woman who had seen beyond the ambitious businessman, who had loved the simple man he was before becoming this fortune-making machine. They married young, full of dreams and promises that seemed unbreakable. But as the empire grew, the marriage crumbled. The revelations were painful, betrayals, lies, inverted priorities. Helena filed for divorce 20 years ago, and Eduardo signed the papers without even trying to fight for her, because in his journey, pride was worth more than love. But going back to that operating room, to those 3 minutes that separated life from death, I need you to understand what was going through Dr. Raphael's mind at that moment. Because this wasn't a simple decision between right and wrong. It was a brutal clash between 2 completely opposite worlds, the cold reason that medicine demands and the beating heart that makes us human. Raphael had grown up in a family where rules were sacred. His father, a career military man, taught him that hierarchy exists for a reason, that orders are not questioned, that discipline is what separates civilization from chaos. His mother, a respected judge, showed him from an early age that the law has no room for feelings, that true justice is blind precisely because it cannot allow itself to be contaminated by emotion. These values shaped Raphael from childhood. When he entered medical school, he carried with him this mentality of precision, of doing everything exactly as it should be done. He memorized protocols as if they were commandments, followed every instruction from his professors to the letter, and when he took the Hippocratic Oath, those words were not just a formality. First, do no harm. He repeated this to himself every day, in every difficult decision, in every moment of uncertainty. It was the moral compass that guided his entire professional journey. But there, in that instant frozen in time, that compass was spinning wildly. Because the protocol said one thing, but his instinct screamed something completely different. The monitor's revelations were too subtle to be considered scientific evidence, but too strong to be ignored by his conscience. The impact of this contradiction was shattering everything he believed about himself. Raphael wasn't just choosing between saving or not saving Eduardo. He was choosing who he really was. And that's when it happened. Raphael hung up the phone. He simply hung up, cutting off the connection with his superior, who was still waiting for confirmation that the devices would be disconnected. His hands stopped trembling. A strange calm took hold of him, that kind of clarity that only comes when you finally stop fighting against yourself and accept who you really are. He looked at Eduardo, and in that unconscious face he no longer saw millionaire, a powerful businessman, a man who had hurt so many people. He saw only a human being who still had a story to finish, a regret to repair, a chance for transformation that only life could offer. Raphael took a dose of adrenaline. His hands were steady now, moving with the precision of someone who knows exactly what they need to do, even if it means destroying everything they built. He prepared the defibrillator while the voice of reason screamed inside his head about all the consequences, disciplinary action, loss of his medical record, possible imprisonment, public humiliation, the end of the reputation he took almost 5 decades to build. But you know what's interesting about these moments of truth? It's that when you finally decide to follow your heart, all those threats completely lose their power. Because there's something bigger at stake. There's a real possibility of making the difference between someone's life and death. The electric shock coursed through Eduardo's body. Once, nothing, twice. The monitor remained straight. Raphael felt tears burning in his eyes, but he didn't stop. The third time. And then, like a miracle that science can't fully explain, beep. Weak, almost imperceptible, but real. Eduardo's heart started beating again. Raphael's transformation was complete in that second. He had chosen humanity above all else. The operating room doors exploded open minutes later. Security guards, the hospital director, nurses in shock, everyone stared at Raphael as if he had gone mad, and perhaps, by the standards of that cold and calculated system, he really had. The disciplinary process began the following morning. Headlines in the newspapers: Doctor disobeys order and saves millionaire, investigations, hearings, his name dragged across the media. Raphael was immediately suspended. 47 years of impeccable career erased in a single night. But you know what's surprising? He didn't show a single second of remorse because he knew deep down that he had done the only thing that truly mattered. Meanwhile, Eduardo woke up. 3 days after that medical miracle, he opened his eyes and the first thing he saw was a nurse holding a yellowed envelope. It was a letter from Helena, kept by a close friend all these years, waiting for the right moment. The revelations on those pages changed everything. Helena wrote that she had forgiven Eduardo a long time ago, that she understood the pressures and difficult choices he had to make, but that she hoped that one day he would learn to forgive himself. That he would truly live, not just exist accumulating empty achievements. The impact of those words was devastating and liberating at the same time. Eduardo created a foundation 3 months later. Hospitals, free clinics, scholarships for doctors, all in Helena's name. And the first person he wanted to honor was Raphael, the man who risked everything to give her this second chance at redemption, the doctor who showed that some rules were made to be broken when humanity is at stake. You know, I keep thinking about how many times in life we're put at these crossroads, where there's no instruction manual, where no one can decide for you. Maybe it's not a life or death decision like Dr. Raphael's. But it's those moments where you have to choose between doing what's expected of you or doing what you feel is deeply right. And the truth is, these choices define who we really are much more than any diploma hanging on the wall or important position we hold. If you've made it this far, it's because this kind of story resonates with you. You're someone who isn't afraid to feel, to question, to look at your own life and ask yourself if you're following the path of authenticity or just fulfilling expectations. And if that's you, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel because that's exactly what this is about. Real stories that move us, that make us stop and reflect on what really matters. Leave a like too, because it shows me that we're connected, that this conversation makes sense to you as much as it does to me. And tell me in the comments, if you were in Dr. Raphael's place, would you follow the law or your heart? There's no wrong answer here, only your truth. Write below so I know you made it to the end and that this message touched you in some way. It can just be on with you until the end or anything you're feeling right now. And look, there's a video over here that will make you think even more about difficult choices and the price of courage. Click and continue with me there, because the conversation doesn't end here.